Howdy, welcome to my desk here. Welcome back to the Toyan V8, more specifically. Some minor things about this engine. I have rebuilt it like 3 times now. I expect that on these engines because they are brand new. There's always little tiny things, whatnot, etc., etc. I get these to tinker on. The first issue was built it the first time, went to spin it so I could lash my valves, and couldn't spin it. Fun. Because in order to get the entire thing apart, all the front and back end has to come apart because there's a panel holding the oil pan to the block. So I did that completely down to the crank and spun the crank. Notice bearings 3 and 2 were perfectly fine. Fantastic. Nada. Bearing 1, though, did have a slight little hitch to it. Well, it actually had a severe hitch to it. It was bad bind. People kept telling me it was a bent crank and that Toyan was junk. It's not a bent crank, I promise you. I know it's not a bent crank because I used this friggin' thing in a jerry rig to spin the crank over, and it barely tickled that needle. Crankshaft is fine. Crankshaft spins pretty dang true for, being machined on a lathe. And Sharpied it, see where it marked once I spun it, sanded it lightly. You take too much material off that bearing, and that bearing will become useless. Junk. You might as well not have support bearings in this crankshaft at all. Once I got that fixed, bearing, you could flick it with your fingers and it would whee just fine. The other thing is your connecting rods are going to be real stiff on this engine. Most people say use shims. I find that using shims will help it break in, but once you put it back to stock without shims, it's going to be tight again. So I found that it was easier just to add the pistons one by one, severely and heavily lubricate everything, wrist pin, connecting rod, bearings. Well, there is no bearings on this engine, but everything. The connecting rod is the bearing. Everything, and spun it over with the drill. Next piston, same thing, spin it with the drill till I had all 8 pistons and was spinning it with the drill. Spins perfectly now. Spins real great. The only other thing that I needed to do on this engine is with this valve train setup. I would go to lash my valves, have it a perfect lash, perfect. Oh, so satisfying. Spin it because I like double checking my valve lash before I move on to the next set. Too tight. Can't even get the feeler gauge in there. Okay. Push it back down to make sure it's resting. Too loose. Okay, let's relash the valves. Cool. Rotate. Check again. Too tight. Too tight. Okay. Push, push. Too loose. Too loose. All right. Nope. Ball bearings are getting control deleted. And yes, it does use ball bearings, as well as your standard typical lifter and push rod. This is the first engine I have ever seen use a single ball bearing for its camshaft rocker valve assembly setup. The only other engine that I know of that has, a full-on ball bearing in it is the Engine D6, because they are roller bearings. But every other engine is only just used a push rod and a lifter. So these ball bearings are great. However, in my own thinking, I could be wrong, could be right. Take it with a grain of salt. This engine is a 25 to mix, or a 1-to-25 mix or a 1-to-30 mix. So it gets plenty of lubrication, but it doesn't have lubrication like a oil pan would, like the D6 or the other engines that I got that have an oil pan and an oil pump. It wouldn't happen instantly, but over time, these ball bearings will develop a flat spot, and once it develops that flat spot, it's not going to spin around freely anymore. It is going to eventually get big enough to hitch, catch, rip off your camshaft lobe or completely snap your crank, cause a whole bunch of issues. You know, I assume all of these engines that I build are interference engines, and yeah, you get the drift. Before you freak out, there's no difference if you're using these lifters on the crankshaft. They do just fine. In fact, that's what's on this bank right now. There is no ball bearings underneath these lifters. The only thing you need to do is cut a 35 millimeter piece of rod, because you will need new push rods. And you want them to be just under or halfway down this silver piece. Because the problem with this engine is when you would put it together, these screw heads would be all the way up against the rocker arm, and you would not be on any camshaft lobes, and you'd have less play than that, which is not good when you're trying to lash an engine, and you don't have much screw room. So with it now shorter but longer, I now have plenty of wiggle room on my valves to do proper lashing, which is great. I want to see some gap underneath these parts here, so that's what I did with this engine. Other than that, this engine went together really well. Everything's super simple, super easy. One trick for when you're doing the camshaft, there's a flat spot to make a D shape. That flat spot needs to go to this direction, and your dots need to go down, and you're good to go. Other than that, engine's really easy to put together. Valve lashes apparently are, where's my valve lash? Come here. What? 4 thou? Yeah, there you go. 4 thou or 0.10 millimeters. I might do that for the intake, but the exhaust I might move to like 12 or 13. For, you know, your exhaust should open just a tickle more than your intake. But that's that. I'm going to continue on with this, get it lashed. Hopefully I can get it started either by tonight or tomorrow. And yeah, we'll see this thing rip. Hopefully we've got it a V8 engine that runs fantastic. I've got high hopes for it. Looks great. See ya.